Hello? All right. The live stream will be starting in approximately 5 minutes. If you're waiting in the lobby, feel free to give me a shout out in the chat. Check 1 2. Would you please let me know if my microphone is working, if you have the ability to do so. Check 1 2. check. Give it about 2 more minutes before we get into a game. If anybody's in the lobby can hear me, would you please type something in the chat so I can make sure my chat window is working correctly? That'd be great. I've been trying to reposition it so that it's in a better spot for this particular game. Hello, hello. We'll be starting the game in about 2 minutes. Hey, Bad Helper. Welcome back. Any thoughts on what we should do for today's game? I'm considering continuing the Umbral Choir game that we have for the last 2 episodes. Been playing. But I'm open to suggestions. If you'd like to see something else. I tend to agree. The first 30 turns of any 4X, I think, is the most compelling part of the game. At least for me it is. So I'm okay with starting a new game, if that's what you want to see. Any specific faction that you'd like to get my take on? We can go ahead and jump into here. Okay. Well, the factions that I have the most experience playing right now, besides the Umbral Choir, obviously, which I've been playing for just as long as the DLC's been out, is definitely the Vaulters, the United Empire, the Horatio. I haven't played a ton of Sofuns, but I have used them. They're pretty vanilla, so there's not a lot of difference between them and some of the more basic factions. Haven't played a ton with the Lumeris, Cravers, Unfallen, or Riftborn, or Vidyani. So I may not have as many great insights with those factions as I do with some of the other ones. But one of the factions that I've actually been wanting to revisit recently is Horatio. So maybe we'll play some Horatio today. Let's go Horatio. I like to be yellow when I play with Horatio. And then I think I'm actually going to cut back the number of players in this game. So we're going to go down to 5. And I'm going to make them random. Maybe we'll do 6. What color do we not have? Purple? Red, green, purple, blue, and orange, and yellow. That's probably good. 6-arm spiral. Go down to a medium-sized galaxy. We'll leave everything else pretty much the same. So this should give me 5 random opponents. I believe I have it set up to where I won't get duplicates of anything, so if I get a Craver rolled, I won't get more than 1. But this should be interesting. I'm thinking I'm also going to go with mini constellations. I really like the way that feels. But I haven't tried it on a smaller map, like a medium-sized map yet, so I want to see what that's like. And then when you go with many constellations, I like to reduce the node connectivity. The reason for that is wormhole tech. The wormholes go like absolutely nuts when you have like 30 in a very large galaxy, like 30 constellations that are all attached by wormholes. It gets really confusing. So just lowering that makes the map a little bit more bearable to deal with. It may not be that big a deal on a smaller map. I kind of like the smaller map. I kind of like the feel of a knife fight in a cupboard. But yeah, we can go with a slightly larger map if you think that would be good. We'll set it to large size. So this is enough room for 8 players. That should give us a little bit more breathing room. And that's actually preferable if you're playing with Horatio anyways, because early aggression is really pretty much death sentence if you're playing Horatio. I think that's probably good. We'll go ahead and get started. So I got into playing Horatio about a year ago, and it was largely off of the back of watching another Let's Player play Horatio. I never really found him all that interesting before, but after watching that series and coming up with some cool strategies, yeah, I love the way their ships look. The ships look really cool. Unfortunately, they're kind of garbage in terms of their usefulness. But after watching his videos for a while and seeing the kind of games he was having and some of the strategies that you could implement, I became really interested in giving it a try and came up with some what I feel were pretty good strategies. If you watch many other players' videos on the Horatio, they'll tell you that Horatios have one of the most difficult starts in the game, and that is absolutely true. But you can kind of offset that a little bit, and we'll talk about how I plan to do that. We got our hero. I gotta remember he's an overseer, and he's an ecologist. What were his specials? +1 food per original empire population on planets, and fleet movement. That's actually really helpful in the early game for scouting, which we're definitely going to do. Food. Approval and food. And then food and industry are our governor abilities. Movement and vision. Refill rate. I think that's pretty garbage, actually. And XP are our Fleet abilities. Okay. Let's take a look at our system, and this is one of the reasons why the Horatio are looked at as one of the weakest civilizations in the game, and it has largely to do with the fact that you start on a Mediterranean planet that is hot. Most of the other factions start on something that's temperate fertile, and because of that, buildings like Xeno-industrial infrastructure are really, really powerful. And so as soon as you get them down, I don't like the position of where the text box is, at least in that screen. GMO food strats. Yes, absolutely. Food strategy is a big part of what makes Horatio's gameplay work. And we'll be talking about that. I might have to move that text box down a little bit. I thought that would be a better spot for it, so I adjusted it a little higher, but not on this screen. I'll just have to remember to zoom out when you guys are typing stuff. But back to the Xeno-industrial infrastructure being a bad structure. With our planet, it gives us 10 industry. Drone networks actually gives us more than Xeno-industrial infrastructure does, and it's cheaper to build. So the fact that we start kind of industry inhibited is a little bit of a problem. One of the things that we can do to offset that is we have the ability to colonize every type of planet right from the beginning of the game. The yields that our populations will gather on those planets is reduced. Yeah, that is correct. It's okay. There's not going to be a perfect place in a game like this to stick this little text box. And like I said, as long as I zoom out to here, I can read it pretty easily. So I'll just have to remember to do that when I'm having trouble reading it. But our ability to colonize all these planets right from the beginning of the game allows us to recoup some of the advantage that the other players get on us by having temperate fertile on their main system. Because many times they're not going to be able to grab these other planets until much later in the game. And because of that, their industry is like really big when they initially get the building down, but it doesn't scale quite as quickly into the immediate future. Where with us, when we set Xeno-industrial infrastructure down or public-private partnerships, we don't get a lot from it initially with our crappy Mediterranean planet, but if we inhabit all of these very, very quickly, we can actually get a pretty good amount of resources from it. So we're still going to do something very similar to what we were doing with the Umbral Choir, and that is grab as many of these as quickly as we can. But first, we are going to go ahead and grab Drone Networks and Cerebral Reality, because both of these are really, really good buildings. We need to talk about our ship briefly. So the Revealer's not a bad scout. It has a lot of flexibility in its slots, and so you can do a lot of different things with it. One of the problems, however, is that Horatio as a faction have a penalty to the construction of ships, so they cost more industry than any other players. And that's what really sets you back in terms of your ability to play offensively and to hold off early aggression. Your ships just cost more than everybody else's, but they're not as strong. They're not any stronger, and in some cases often weaker than other players. So we're going to have to figure out a way to minimize our contact with other players until we can get an either big economic lead where we can just outproduce them, and even if our ships aren't as good, doesn't matter, or yeah, we're just going to lose a war, so we'll have to be really careful. As far as initially, let's reset the design. So they start us with this engine, which gives us a movement of 7. This is really the number that I want to look at, because I need to know how to equip our hero ship in order for him to keep up with our scouts, because that's what his primary thing is going to be. Now, because this slot is really versatile, we actually have the option of ditching the laser cannon and either putting a second engine or some more probes on here, and we might actually do that, but I'm going to go look at our hero first. And so let's jump over here to this ship. We will go ahead and attach our hero to it. And let's see, we're at 4. that puts us at 7. I can put another engine now, put us at 10. We can pull these off. Yeah, that's probably fine. So we'll apply that, and then we'll come back to the revealer, and we'll swap out this laser cannon for another engine, so we have 10 movement with a bunch of probes. Did our hero's ship have any more? We didn't. I was going to say, I'd like to put a probe on one of these slots, but I don't have the ability to do that. That's fine. We'll just get by with the probes that we have. Okay, we also have a bunch of curiosities to go ahead and search, so let's go ahead and get that taken care of and make sure our hero's getting XP, because that's the whole point in putting him down as a scout in the first 10 turns of the game. Titanium deposit's good. A pulso population is actually fantastic. Pulsos are one of the best populations in my opinion, and one that we would really like to splice potentially early because of the industry that they offer. I'll have to double check what their splicing effect is. It may not actually give industry. And they like deciduous trees. And we found Jadonics. This is something that can really help offset our industry woes. Whatever player starts next to Jadonics is usually at a serious advantage if they're able to get it in their systems quickly enough. We will definitely prioritize colonizing this planet as quickly as possible. This is only an average deposit, but still, it's enough for us to get this as our System 1 development. Yeah, I'm pretty happy with it. We started with both Strategics and Jadonics. You really can't ask for a better start than that, honestly. So as a Horatio start, this is actually pretty good. We also have a jungle planet, which is hot fertile. We actually like hot planets a lot, so having 3 hot planets in this system is not bad. This isn't the worst start I've ever seen for a Horatio. It's actually pretty good. Maybe not the best start, but not bad. And we'll definitely try to make use of it. I'm going to want to colonize this one and this one first, so we can even start mining this and these, and then we'll queue that one up. We're going to shuffle these around quite a bit as we get buildings and other things unlocked. Let's go ahead and just clear some of these messages out of the way, and let's move over to the law page, the government page, and we can see that Horatio prefer Red Sang, Zivali prefer Jadonics, which we actually have income of soon, and then we found that Pulso, and so we have starting food tech maybe go for early modernization. I agree. Actually, we don't have the food tech to start with. The early food tech is this guy right here. What did we start with? We started with this tech, which allows us to talk to miner civs right away, and also gives us a happiness building. And then we started with this tech, which gives us the better engines, I think. Or no, the better engines were just because we have the unlock for tier 2. It's just the science probes and the ability to colonize Mediterranean. But yeah, I think early System 1 tech would be right here, and we definitely want to get Xeno-Industrial Infrastructure down quickly, so we're going to go ahead and queue that up, and then we'll see about moving right into that one. Actually, it's right here, isn't it? So level 2 is this one, so we need to get 3 of these techs in quick succession in order to get this down and in order to get our Jadonics online. But I think that's generally what I would focus on anyways. We might deviate from that slightly, but that's really the first 3 or 4 technologies are going to be from that wing, just so we can unlock system development and get this sweet, sweet 60 industry rolling in as quickly as possible. Let's get our beautifier, and we have 1 probe left that we can launch. Zooming out, we want to launch it this way, because this is most likely a dead end, and we'll probably end up sending our ship that way, but I don't want to send either of our ships out just yet. You never know which one of these two lanes is going to have the better system for the beautifier to head to. The nice thing about the Horatio is they can also colonize any planet, so you don't have to wait till you get technology to get on certain systems. The systems that you find should all be colonizable right from the get-go, which means whichever one we pick needs to be the better of the two. And speaking of the beautifier, we do have the ability to add a second engine to it, which I'm going to apply, but we may not actually spend this dust yet. It's going to cost 60 dust to upgrade that ship, and if it's close enough, we may not need to for this first one, but future ones we build should have better engines. They're going to have to travel further than this first one is. And I think we're just about at the point where we're going to end our turn. I just want to run through everything real quick and see where we're at, and make sure I'm not forgetting anything that I need to do in the very beginning of the game. Oh yeah, we need to hit a law. Green fertility bill just gives us extra food. We don't have any anomalies really on our starting system. There is one in our starting system, but not on a planet we have just yet. So this doesn't have a lot of value. I hesitate to run this. I think I've talked about this before. You get a lot of food, science, dust, and influence for it, but slowing down your production at this point in the game is usually a bad idea. Cram for exam doesn't have a big penalty, and it does provide a fair amount, and it's actually bigger than normal right now for us because we found that pulso population. So I think our science is only 22. We're going to get like 50%. I think it's going to be about 12 points of science. So I think that's definitely worth running. So we're going to go ahead and pass cram for exam. We just want to make sure that this number stays high enough that we're not missing out on free resources. And that's it. So turn 1 is in the books. Alright, we got one probe. Unfortunately, this probe didn't make it all the way down that lane. So since I already have a probe scouting that lane, we're going to go ahead and send our ships down this lane. And that's Jadonix. Let's take a look at the system. So we've got a small jungle, 2 ashes, and 2 savannas. This is actually a really, really good system for us. Savannas are pretty decent planets. Ashes are really good planets because they're hot and we benefit from the industry and the approval bonus that we get for being on hot. And then a small jungle is one of the best systems for Horatio to find because it's hot fertile. So yeah, we'll definitely be putting our colonizer over here. And so let's go ahead and get him moving now. It's going to take 2 turns if we do this. We already know that with the engines, we're not going to make it in 1 turn, so it's going to take 2 turns even if we upgrade. There's no need to go ahead and upgrade the engines on this guy. Alright, turn 2 should be in the books. Let's just double check over here. We did go up to 34 science per turn, which is good. And approval went up to 67, so actually I forgot about this. We get a bonus plus 15 for hardship ready or something like that. One of these bonuses doesn't apply on the first turn of the game and then it takes effect later. Because I think you saw this at like 59% earlier. If we disable cram for exam, we'll actually go up 10% on a lot of our things, including 10% on science. So if we abolish that law, we lose some science, but we gain some food. Almost 7 food. Almost 1 influence. 6 dust. And 4 science instead of the 12 we were getting. I think that's a better play at the moment. So then, do we want to run a different law? I don't think so. I mean, I guess we could run this. I think right now I'd rather just bank the influence. Excuse me. Hero's already leveled up. I believe we had 2 fertile systems in our starting planet, so the food's probably going to be okay here. Oh no, we only had 1, didn't we? Yeah, just the 1. I keep forgetting that we don't start with a good planet, but we found this one, so yeah, either way. This system, savannas are temperate, not fertile, so that's unfortunate. But we also have a fertile here. We have the ability to colonize any of these. The only one of these that we actually can colonize without penalty right now is the jungle planet. So that's the one we're going to colonize. And it's going to take 28 turns at its current rate of food output to turn this colony outpost into an actual colony. It'll be less than that because we will be shipping food from the other system. And we can eventually maybe pay one of these to try to get it a little quicker. Also, whoops, let's get to the right screen here. We have probes that we can use. Alright, so that's kind of unfortunate. Dense atmosphere is good, but it's not what I was hoping for. This one is the one I probably should have uncovered either way. Well, actually we can, because I have another probe, so there you go. And that's what I was hoping for. Okay, so this is Jadonix, and because we have an outpost here, we're actually collecting this. It's only a poor deposit, so we're only going to get 1 a turn, but the sooner we can start collecting this, the faster we'll have the amount we need to set our Tier 1 development. And I don't have any movement left, so I guess we'll just stay here. There's a lot of curiosities here anyways. Actually, we do have 3 movement. Let's go ahead and keep moving. And we can always come back and grab these curiosities later, or with the second scout that we'll likely build here pretty soon. Also, our probe finally made it down this lane. And we have a steppes world, which is temperate. A snow, a forest, which is temperate fertile, and a tiny snow. So this is a very, very good planet for us to come and grab. And this is a decent system with 4 relatively low tier systems. The only problem with this is they're very small in size, and so we're not going to get as many population on it as I would generally like. We are well above the threshold for happy. I don't think there's anything else we need to do. We don't have income to pop our booster yet. Oh, we do. We could pop our booster for the Zavali. Zavali give 3 extra science on happy, and they are happy. That would go up to 6. I think that's worth doing. It'll also give us a little bit more approval. Science right now is really important because we want to rush as many techs as we can in the early game. We're at 9. I'm trying to remember. I think 20 is the default for most factions for their first system development. So we're well on our way towards that. Alright, we've reached the dead end here with our probes, so that was a good find. I'm debating whether to rush a second colony ship and get another one started here. I think as soon as this one is just about to finish, we'll start production of the next one and keep them rolling. We're going to stop here and search that curiosity. But that'll have to be next turn. Anything else? I don't think so. Alright. I'm kind of playing a little slower today. Taking it easy. And the first step of our faction quest. Okay, so this is one of the first opportunities that you have to really kind of set up for Horatio what you're going to do. +4 food on Original Empire can be really strong, particularly if you happen to have a lot of planets that you can colonize and populate really quickly. We actually have 2 pretty good sized systems with the 4 and I think 5 planets respectively. So this might be worth considering. If you do have a lot of minor civs nearby, and you've already uncovered a couple of them, this is also a strong option. But without the minor civs nearby, I don't really think that the approval is greatly needed. The one thing to think about late game, however, and this will kind of depend on the type of map you're running. If you're running like a really dense map, this can have some play, is that the extra influence on your empire population does lead to larger influence bubbles growing over time, and also the ability to do Pacific conversion. And so if Pacific conversion is something that you want to try, and it makes sense to do so on the map that you're playing, this could be a good option for you. And then this one, +4 industry on Original Empire population, is almost always a good choice. Maybe not always the best choice, but typically is going to be a very good choice. In order to get this, we got to build 5 ships, and that's the problem, is that it's going to severely lower our output in our home system in terms of just getting system developments down quickly. We can't get a lot of system developments down quickly on our home system if we're constantly clogged with ships being built. Now, if we can find a ship that's relatively easy and cheap to build, that also has 100 defensive power, then we might be able to pull this off quick enough. But this isn't something that you would want to try unless you're pretty confident that you can get your industry online and make this happen fast. Increase Horatio population to 12 just happens on its own, and reach at least 61 of a luxury stock happens on its own as well. Since we started basically with turn 1 luxuries, I'm kind of leaning towards this one. But if you have any feedback in which decision you would like me to take, now would be the time to give it. Okie doke. Well then, I'm going to go ahead and take the luxury one today. A lot of times I would typically go for this one, but for various reasons I'm not. One is we're not in any immediate danger. We're not in a really tight situation in terms of the map. And also because I chose constellations many, we're going to kind of be isolated. You know what? The reason that I was choosing this is because this was going to happen pretty quickly, and we could start taking advantage of it. But you're right, at the moment, we don't have any good ways to spend influence. And as I pointed out, our galaxy is really spread out, and we're kind of isolated. So Pacific conversion is not going to become a factor till much later. I think you're right. I think maybe the food one is the way to go. We've already kind of focused on food on our hero. Yeah, let's do this one. We also have tongue-tied there. We also have two systems that are pretty good in terms of us being able to colonize the planets quickly and start filling out population. So that'll give us 3 systems that can grow population really quickly. That being said, we do want to consider getting down some more food buildings soon, and also, what was I going to say? I lost my thought there. Another beautifier, that's what it was. We'll want to get this built very, very soon so we can get that other planet bringing stuff in, and also rush population to it. So where do I want to stick this? Maybe right here? It'll take 6 turns. We'll be a little bit further along over here. I also have the dust to run this. This one has 13 food on it. I think I would rather run the dust over here. Yeah, it would be good if they were, and that would maybe make a little bit more sense to take the influence if I knew for sure that they were right around the corner, but at the moment I don't. So I think you're right, the food is the better choice with the knowledge that we have. Let's take a look. You said you think they're right around the corner here? Yeah, I don't see a bubble or anything sticking out, but usually your starting constellations tend to have at least one minor faction on them. And then there's always like one towards the center that has like a whole bunch of minors on it for whatever reason. That just seems to be the way that the computer builds the map. Alright, so we got 2 curiosities on this planet. XP and an influence support module. Neither are very interesting. Another Jadonics deposit, however, is okay. I don't have any curiosities currently left to search here. So then the decision is, do we risk going this way or do we just go back? And I think in this circumstance, we just go back. And what we'll do is we'll grab the curiosities here, but I'll also shoot a probe out and try to catch what this next node is so we know going forward what we're looking at. Alright, food ships are carrying 29 food. And I'm 22 turns at 13 food. So each ship that arrives is going to take 2 turns off of this counter. Roughly speaking. Nothing else we really need to do at the moment. Boy, we are really close to being able to move to the next tier of happiness, which would be really good. Is it worth doing at the cost of a little bit of industry? I think actually it kind of is, because we're going to be building a beautifier for the next few turns anyways, and I really don't care if it takes an extra turn for that to get built. So yes, let's go ahead and do that. That's going to put us up to ecstatic, which is going to give us more dust, more science, which we really need, the science in particular, and also more food. This one is now producing almost 20 food, 18.8 food for being ecstatic, which is good. So I think that is the right call at this point in the game. Alright, so we've got 1 probe and 2 curiosities, so we'll search 1 now. And then just wait a few turns for that one. Hero's already made level 2. We'll take the food tech because growing Horatio is what we want to do. And again, we managed to hit level 2 on turn 6. Our hero at this point, if he had been a governor, would have built 1 building. And there's no way he would even be, well, our hero hit level 3. I always get this confused because they start at level 1. But we got our second point at level 3 already. We wouldn't even have our first point at this point in the game. You just don't get enough XP for these early buildings to level up fast enough to make it worthwhile. Alright, we have this done, so we had talked about rushing up to this tier, and I think that's still a semi-viable tactic, but I got to think about what are we going to do? So we have luxury resources on our planets. That would be a good one to grab. In fact, a lot of the planets and systems we're building in have luxury resources, so this is actually pretty reasonable building, which also makes this pretty reasonable as a tech. We also know that we have at least 2 ash planets, so these are probably our next 2 techs, and that gives us this. 13 turns, I'm okay with that. This is where I want it to be. We need to get this moved up in the queue. And let's see. Do I want to make this before the beautifier? I can get that in 7 turns and that in 10 turns. I don't want this second one running while the first one is still running, or if they have to run simultaneously, I don't want them running for very long simultaneously. So I'm okay with delaying this. Getting the 10 industry down is probably worthwhile, even though it's only 10. We'll be able to get more once we get the rest of these colonized. And what else can we do? Just look at everything again. I have a bad habit of not going back and looking through these screens, and there's often we do have Hyperion. Is it worth skipping it? I think it is, but let's talk about it and see if maybe I'm wrong. So grabbing this technology is going to give us access to this building, which actually is going to give us potentially some industry once we get the population on the planet that has those strategics. We don't currently have it right now, so it's going to take some time to get that. But getting these 2 first, we're going to be, as soon as we get these 2 done, we're going to be immediately able to build our tier 1 empire upgrade, and that's going to give us 60 industry. I think that that 60 industry is the most valuable thing that we can pursue right now in the game. The one thing that I will say though is if we do grab like this first, did I move it? Yeah, let's move it to the front. That only takes 4 turns to get done. And so we could actually get this potentially online a little bit sooner. But what you'll see from our queue right here is, okay, we get that done in 4 turns. We're not even going to have Xeno-Industrial Infrastructure, let alone our beautifier done. And we don't even have any population on this planet yet. So until we get some population over here, I don't think it makes sense to really focus on that building. The income of Hyperion does have some value, but we don't have anything to spend it on right now anyways. Where we do have income of Jadonics and something we could potentially spend it on in our tier 1 system development, which I think makes the most sense to pursue. Okay. We have lots of planets to burn. Industry-wise, not sure about this. Um, can you expand on that thought a little bit more? What do you mean by we have lots of planets to burn? Like more systems to scout out, or more systems to colonize, or planets to colonize? I completely agree with you. Um, the reason that I put Xeno-industrial infrastructure here is because that is going to give us the most industry that we can get in the shortest amount of time. Nothing I can do right now in the game is going to give us more industry than getting this building built. And by the time we get this building built, we'll be pretty close to being able to put down our tier 1. We'll be like halfway to getting our 60 industry from Jadonics, at which point we maybe get one of these two completed, and each one of these that we get after this building's down gives us more industry. This one in particular will give us 20. So that's kind of my plan. Get this done, get this done. That's going to give us 10, 20, 30 extra industry. And then right around the time we're finishing this, or maybe one of these, we'll be able to get the 60 industry from the Jadonics booster on our system. I think that's the fastest way to snowball our industry. That's how I've traditionally played the Horatio since I started practicing with him, and it seems to be pretty effective. But let's take a little bit of a note where we're at right now, and let's see if maybe we snowball. Okay. So the two ways to buff your production primarily are going to be through population on heavily industry-based systems, usually hot planets, because hot planets produce more industry. And also, that Hyperion building can be really, really good. In fact, that Hyperion building is going to be really, really good. I just don't think it's going to be good enough fast enough to rush it. Because here's the thing. It's going to take 4 turns science-wise to get it. So 4 turns puts us halfway through this. It's going to take another... What is this taking? Like 7 turns to build? So maybe like 5 turns to build it. That puts us at turn 9. Even if we put all of our population over on this system, that's only going to give us an extra 12 industry. Where just getting this system done, colonized, gives us 20. If I didn't have a hot fertile, then I probably would consider the Hyperium a little bit more. But because I don't have something, or because I do have something that benefits from this planet effect, I'm willing to delay it. That being said, I am going to prioritize it probably as soon as we get our Jadonics running. As soon as we get the first Jadonics thing down, we'll probably go back and grab that technology. I think it's probably a subtle trade-off, but I think it is the better of the two options. The other thing that you have to remember is by getting the Jadonics thing first, we also have the ability to rush it on Mira and on Artemis, where only right now, at least, only Artemis has a benefit from the Hyperium with this titanium deposit. Mira doesn't currently have one. We might uncover one, but we don't have any strategics over here, so it doesn't benefit from the Hyperium building nearly as much. So that is the direction I think I've decided to go. But I do want to just take a look here and see where we're at. So on turn 6, we've got 54 industry. By turn 15 or so, this should be more than doubled. We should be looking at double this number if I made the right choice. Perfect. Good to know we're on the same page. I think that does make the most sense, though. And if you ever have a question or a thought or a different idea than what I have, please type it in the chat, because I do like to talk out my own thinking. Because that's usually where you find out whether your thinking is right or wrong, is just by talking it out. What do we end up with? Yeah, more Jadonics. So, yeah, this system not getting the Hyperion benefit from that building definitely seals it for me. Okay, we have a couple of options. Our hero is not going to be able to make it anywhere reasonable to scout more curiosities, because he's going to be put back on the main system in 2 turns. That being said, in 2 turns, we want to be in a location where he can. We don't want to be in the middle of a star lane. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to run over here and get our scout ship as far ahead as I can. Absolutely. Yeah, hard decisions are the best ones, and the more time you take to think about it, and then also just like looking at it from different perspectives and in different ways. Getting a second pair of eyeballs on a problem and a different perspective can really help make sure that you're making the best decision possible. But in my thinking, you know, you kind of followed along with me there through that whole discussion, and that's how my brain thinks. That's where I came up with the idea of Jadonics being the right choice. We'll see if it is. I don't know that we could have done anything differently that would be better, though. It might be similar, and it might be similar enough that it didn't matter which way we chose, but in this case I think it does. So this is another one of those situations, like what do I do with this ship and this hero? Because in 2 turns he's got to go back, right? So my decision here is get this ship as far along as I can, while I can still position the hero back here at a reasonable amount of time. So what we'll probably do is we'll go over here, we'll wait a turn and maybe launch a probe out, and then we'll send the ship down this lane after we move our hero back here on turn 9. So we'll probably waste a little bit of our movement doing that, but it would be better than anything else I could do with him. I would try to send it all the way over here and grab these curiosities, but we can't do that in a reasonable amount of time. And I really want to get him back here as soon as possible so that he's providing all that extra food, and we're getting close to that faction quest of 12 population. Yeah, I think so. And the thing is, these 2 are on the same planet, so only this planet benefits from that. Alright, so from here, I already know that I'm going to send my ship down this lane because I don't have anywhere else to go. And I know that the probe isn't going to uncover it before I get the ability to do that next turn. So for me, it makes way more sense to send this probe out this way somewhere and see if we just get lucky and hit another constellation. And then, like I said, we have a little bit of movement left over, but if I move it onto the star lane, the hero will be unable to travel back here. So we're just going to wait. And there's not much else to do this turn. We are taking a little bit of a hit to our industry right now because we're running that approval law. And I could pull that off since we're not actually building the beautifier right now. But I'm kind of digging the food, because the food income right now is pretty significant. And we really need the food because we are sending food to one of our outposts, and we're going to continue to do that throughout the early game here. So I think I'm going to go ahead and continue to let it run. Even though it's slightly slowing down our industry, we're going to make a lot of that back with our Jadonics. Okay, let's just go ahead and move the hero now, so I don't forget to do it. And that's going to increase the food significantly. And he's benefiting even more from that 25% extra food per turn. And so now we're getting 24, almost 24 and a half, just from being ecstatic. And then this ship can go ahead and get down this lane pretty quickly. Might take us another turn or two, depending on how long it is. And this is 4 turns away. We don't have the ability to buy it out, but we are going to have a dust building very shortly. And we do have several planets that have this, but we won't be able to use it right away. Interesting. Alright. Pollux is a large baron and a large baron. Micro factories is 3 extra food. That's actually pretty good for a barren planet, giving you a little bit of food production. But this is a pretty garbage system, not one we're likely to take. That being said, do I use my movement? I guess we will. We'll just go ahead and head down here, and I'll save the probe for the next site. Congratulations, you've achieved the legendary deed. Search 10 curiosities first, and we were able to do that. This is actually really good news for us because 75 red sang is actually pretty beneficial. We're not going to use it as a system booster, but you might remember that our Horatio benefit from it, and this will help increase our food and approval even more, and also help us grow a little quicker so we get more Horatio. So far things are going pretty well for us. The Academy has been discovered by an unknown empire. Astrofinance is done. We're going to rush atmospheric infiltration. Atmospheric filtration. We don't need these happiness buildings just yet, but let's keep moving along. Nice little snaky constellation here. Actually, let's zoom out real quick. Oh, look at that. So, if we can get 3 colonies down before anybody else on this particular constellation, we'll get an extra 15% industry. That's really good for us because that's going to offset the penalty slightly to our ship production, and it's also going to increase the rate at which our system improvements get built in this particular constellation. That's really, really good for us. And we're very likely to achieve that goal. So I'm pretty excited about that. Alright, that's perfect. Pirates on the shittiest system we've uncovered so far. Everything's rolling. Like, we're just doing so good right now. Perseus is a good looking system. What do we got over here? Snow, tundra, snow, Arctic, and gas. 5 planets. 1 large, 1 medium, 2 medium and a small. This is actually not terrible. There's a pretty good amount of space for population to grow here. That's awesome. Yeah, they always come right around turn 12, don't they? But there's a lot of curiosities here, man. That's a lot of XP that a hero could snag. Unfortunately, we don't have the probe regeneration to really make that viable, so we're not going to hold off grabbing these and try to get a hero over here, but I think the atmospheric quest is not going to pop because the Academy's already been discovered, so I don't really need to worry about saving atmospheric curiosities. So let's just go ahead and start uncovering them. We'll start with this planet because it's the most likely to be colonized by us, since Tundra's pretty low tech. It has good food, it has a strategic. If we were going to colonize one of these 5, this would probably be the one. So let's find out what's on it first. Nothing there, and Hyperion. So even more reason to prioritize that, because we would immediately begin mining both once we get this technology done. We have one more probe that I could throw down. So is there any one of these that we want to consider above others? Maybe a life form. There's a possibility that we roll another population point. And it's blue cap mold. That's fine. We don't really have a use for blue cap mold yet. And we don't have any more movement, so we'll just put him to sleep for a turn.
Speak.
We now have some hacking operations we can attempt, with the pirates presenting our first real target. And so I think we're going to go ahead and start that. So we need to go to this screen. And that is going to take 8 turns. We can also throw down encryption on our own system. In case they try to hack Mira, this will help a little bit, and more importantly, if they try to hack Mizar, it'll greatly reduce the speed at which they're able to get down this lane, which will give us time to trace them, hopefully. Our probe we launched actually has borne some fruit. We found another system over here. Not a great one, but one that at least lets us potentially jump to another constellation once we get the tech for that. So all things considered, not a bad start. Zavali have grown. I guess the question is, do we want to pop their booster again? I guess so. We might as well be taking advantage of that extra science, while small amounts of science are actually beneficial. And we just got our first industry building done. We'll get this beautifier done in 3 turns. Let's see how far off are we on this. We're 2 turns away, so this is perfect. We timed this just about right. This is going to get completed right before we get this out, which means we're only going to have food going to 1 outpost at a time. Feel pretty good about the timing on that. Alright, more curiosity searching. Grab this one's Transvine. And not much else to do this turn. So we'll go ahead and end another turn. This is a real opportunity to do something with the Zavali if we want to. We have the ability to splice them out of our population and increase the gather rates of the Horatios that we build from this point on. I'm very torn on what the proper time to do this is. So right now, if we look at what the population are actually bringing in, each population is bringing in a lot of fidsies. We're getting 6 food, 6 industry, 5 dust, and 3 science, plus an extra 6 science, so that's actually 9 science, and some approval. By sacrificing 2 of these guys, that's giving up a lot of resources, and the outputs that we gain on these Horatio are not going to be very large. However, every Horatio we build for the rest of the game is going to have better stats. Typically, I would say it makes more sense to wait until you have a larger population of Horatio in your empire to begin splicing things into it, because that way the offset is not as big. If I have a lot of Horatio getting a little bit of stuff and I kill 2 population, eventually that little bit of stuff actually kind of makes up the difference to some extent, but it also depends on what population you're splicing. In this case, we're going to get a little bit of science and approval. I don't think it makes sense to splice right now. I'd rather just keep our population growing. More blue cap mold. Alright, let's take a look at... So we have a new system here next turn. We're up to 68 on our industry. I think we're going to keep running that law. Alright. Mira is ready for action. Let's get those done. Let's actually move that up in front because the jungle is hot fertile. That's 20 industry, which is more valuable than the food industry we get from this building. This is a curious decision that you have to make. Maybe it's not more valuable. If it were the 30 from a fertile temperate system, I think it is. Where it's only 20, getting this done faster, because it only takes 5 turns, probably makes more sense. We'll do that. The Academy has reached level 2, so heroes are higher level now. And then it's just a matter of getting all of these systems colonized. We definitely want to grab the ones with the best strategics and luxuries first, so we'll put those 2 first, those 2 second. We're not going to put any population on them right away, so more Jadonics. One more turn and we'll be able to get that scout further down the lane. 1 turn and our beautifier is complete. And then it's time to start cranking out these colonizations, which are going to start giving us more fidsies. We're also 1 turn away from atmospheric infiltration. So again, we get this complete, and then we can immediately put down that 60 industry on turn 16. And I said at turn 15 we should be about double where we are right now. And you can see we are going to be at about double, because I'm going to get 60 industry done by turn 17, which will put us at 128. So just a few turns off of my prediction, but not many. Get this ship out and down here. Alright, and then I am going to come back and grab this. So, we want to go to this screen, and we want to set our system development to Jadonics. And it's actually 25, but we have enough. And that means I can get that done in 1 turn. And so turn 17, again, we're going to be double where we were just a few turns ago, which is really, really good. And it's also going to very, very quickly increase the rate at which all these get done. That being said, since our industry is very, very good for a while, I do want to come back and grab this building. And I'm actually going to move it ahead of that one in the queue. Just because we're not going to be able to take advantage of this for a little bit longer, other than the collection of Hyperium. And I can probably get this in the queue of multiple locations a little bit more quickly. Alright, we are grabbing the last 2 of these here shortly. Alright, so they're tracing us. I don't think that it's going to matter. Well, it's showing 5 turns to hack their system. I'm not sure if we have 5 turns, but we'll see. I'm curious if... I was reading in the forums or in the Discord channels that encryption actually does help lower the hacking speed of traces now. That was patched into the game during one of the updates. So we can go ahead and get this system, and we are going to go with the forest. Typically speaking, you always want to take the system with the most food as its base output, because that is the number that largely dictates how quickly your outposts become a colony. The other consideration is obviously whichever ones have the best luxuries and strategics, because you will start mining those immediately. But since this one is both of those things, that makes this decision really easy. And then the second thing that I wanted to do is we've been saving up all this dust just so we could do this. So that's going to reduce it by a number of turns, because it doubles the food output of the system while it's running for the next 10. And then in addition to that, we'll continue to get food on here. I am going to continue to bank my influence in case we do find a miner sieve on our constellation. And we can use that to maybe get a friend. And this is the last curiosity over here. Metallic waters. Not the best or worst anomaly you can find. Alright, and we should have some movement left over, so let's go ahead and utilize that. We'll get a probe. We may launch it back this way to uncover what's at the end of that. This is a bigger constellation than I anticipated it being. But we're very close to getting 3 systems down and getting that 15% bonus to our industry for all of our systems. So that'll be really good for us. Alright, so we're at 122. We don't have at least 4-star systems, but luckily, whatever the Green Empire is, it's not on our constellation because it has not taken control of that, I don't believe. Yeah. So if they had control of it, it would be green, and it's not currently green. Alright, so I've got 1 probe. We can send it this way. Maybe like right there. That should hit whatever's at the end of the star lane. And then we'll just wait and get the rest of those uncovered. We already want to start considering getting a beautifier over here to Perseus, because this is a really rich system. 3 luxury deposits means that our luxury buildings are going to have a chance to do a lot of work. The one problem we're going to have with that is pirates. And I think I have a solution to that if they start blockading and running this system over here. Maybe we grab the tech to jump straight across free space and over to Perseus that way. But we won't know where the pirates really are until we get a scout or a probe over here, which can be a bit problematic. Maybe this is the time that we pull that law off. I think it is. One of the reasons that this number isn't as big as I originally anticipated it being is because the Toys for Boys is lowering it by a little bit. And we're really close to being ecstatic, even without the law. So I think maybe it makes sense to abolish that law. Where does that put us at? We're like right on the edge here. Do I have any way? Actually, I do. I have this will get us above that threshold. I think that's worthwhile. Yeah, wormhole tech would be good, or tanks for pirates. This is going to be done in one turn, and that's going to give us the science building. Now that we're starting to colonize more planets, we're going to be able to benefit from this. The other thing we want to keep an eye on is that as soon as this hits 25, which is going to take a few turns, we're going to want to pop this on our second system. That's going to help this system out a lot. Let's take a look at the tech tree and see. So we have this particular tech, warp drives. That lets us kind of jump to new constellations or bypass the pirates if need be. Military tech-wise, in order to get to tanks, we're going to have to go ubiquitous surveillance probably, which could give us big data shipyards, but more importantly, it gives us the support module that gives us extra manpower to make siege or invasion ships. The other thing that I really want to get down though is this. Because we have a lot of hot planets, this is actually a really efficient building and will help our population grow really, really fast. It's also going to be very, very cheap to get done science-wise. And so I'm hesitant to... I'm not sure if I want to move that in front of plasma metallurgy, but all of these tier 1 techs are super useful and really should be built in the very early game. The only one that maybe gets delayed is the in-way fusion, because the bunker, while important once you start getting invaded, not too important up until that point. That's true. We'll have to see what happens with our hack. Let's take a look at where they're at. They're halfway across this already. The encryption effect doesn't start until the trace reaches our system, and that's the point at which encryption starts to slow the trace down. So I think we'll be okay, and we should be able to either get a backdoor or do some other shenanigans with them. That being said, the Green Empire is growing really rapidly. If you look at the score here, they're quite a bit ahead of everybody, but we're right in the mix. Oh, and we found pulsos. That's really good for us. So now banking this influence feels like we made the right call, and that's going to pay off for us. It also is showing us another star lane over here, which is going to make jumping to this other constellation a little easier. And this is another constellation because we can see the constellation buff for it is food, which is actually another one that's really good for us. But we definitely want to spend as much of this as possible. And maybe I just dump all of my influence into these guys right now. The other thing we could be doing is, now that we actually have some population, we could be throwing this down, giving us more food, but we don't actually have anybody on an anomaly. Yeah, we don't have anomalies on our home system, really. Alright. So we've colonized this now. We're now bringing in more Jadonics income. This one will be next. Yeah, I think we'll just leave it here for now. The extra food for this one doesn't really make sense because the outputs on that system are pretty bad. However, I think it does make sense once we get this one colonized to maybe move everybody over here. And especially once we get a couple of these other buildings done. Alright, we got a probe. Let's try that again. There we go. Weird little bug there. Titanium enhancers, one of my favorite support modules to find. This one actually has a really strong effect on your ability to wage war if you use the right weapons with it. Alright, we're approaching turn 20, and I think we're in a pretty good spot. The Ram Scoop engine is just so much better than this. Alright, we want to run our Horatio booster again. Let's just double check what we're doing here and make sure there's not a better move. Going from 70 to 80 is going to be enough to push us up here. So, infinite supermarkets takes 7 turns. Not worth rushing ahead of Xeno. Industrial infrastructure, but probably worth rushing ahead of these others. The amount of science and dust we'll get, well, it probably doesn't. Actually, this is probably more than what we get from this. But after that, I'll have to reconsider whether we want it. I'm going to leave it here for now. New battle tactic. We should have some movement left over, so let's see if we can't get to the end of the lane. And then what we'll do is come back and maybe grab this curiosity. There's 3 of them over there. Ugh. Now I'm kind of wishing I had just gone over there. It's fine. We'll just keep pouring our influence into them. We're going to stay as ecologists for now. Cool copies. This is actually pretty decent. Food can really accelerate your economy. Alright, we found the end of the lane. And a couple more curiosities. Destructive Salvager. Plus 10 dust per command point destroyed. We got more Horatio on Mira. And another level on our hero. Plus 5 on system, plus 5% food on system, or plus industry and plus food. Let's take a look at our approval on our home system and see if 5 points is going to make a big difference right now. 70 up to 75 does not fix our problem. So no. What is the break point? I believe it's 85. 10 and 5 wood. We're going to get 10 from this. Oh, wrong system. Hold on. So 10 and 5 wood. 10 from this, now that we have that colonized, and 5 wood. So maybe once we get that building done, but this building is actually more important because it's going to give us the science we need to keep researching higher level things. And then when this building's about to get completed, which it will be done a lot faster than that, we're getting industry for each of these colonizations, remember. Then it will be worth looking at putting that point over there. I think for right now, it makes the most sense to grab that point, because that's actually giving us 5 and 10, where the 5 influence is giving us almost nothing, and 5% of our food right now is not that much. It will be worth more later in the game, though. Alright, you gotta wait till you get more probes recharged. And let's take a peek over here. 8 turns away minus a couple of turns, probably 6 turns away from this. We'll have this done before turn 30, which is good. We have enough to praise them again, so I'm going to go ahead and throw that in there. And I'm actually going to take this back. I am going to go ahead and send him this way. We can worry about getting these other curiosities later, but getting the curiosities here will help get relations up here faster, and we have another lane to travel down over there before we have the entire constellation uncovered. That's a good question, and this is a good time to check, and we actually just made it this turn. We're making 5 a turn, so we managed to get enough. And that will go at the top of the queue, which will again accelerate everything else that happens from this point on. We also have this technology now, and I believe we got that on the same turn that we got this planet, which has the benefit of that technology. And so what I really want to do is move like everybody over here, because this is going to give us more industry. And then get this building built, and I'm actually going to put that in front. 2 turns to get that done. Yeah, that's going to be a lot of industry. So this is, what is it, 4 points? 4 points of industry for every single one of these. That'll be pretty good. We also have the ability to grab the colonial exchange, and now is actually a really good time to consider it. None of our planets are sterile, but we do have all of our population on a single planet, and you can see our dust has finally started to bottom out. So by throwing this, we can run negative for a few turns. I'd rather get that first. Our hack completed. So we have some options. We can steal stuff from them. We can eavesdrop on them. We can falsify logs, which I tried with the vaulters, and that did not seem to go very well, at least with the difficulty set on hard. Sabotaging supplies might be worthwhile, or creating a backdoor. I think what we're going to do is create the backdoor first, and then we can hack from them to the pulso and maybe get some more approval with the pulsos. And now that we have a back door over here, something like that takes 10 turns. Wow. Alright, well, I'm curious. So if I go like this, that takes 12 turns. But I think we're less likely to get counter-hacked. If we do get traced, we could lose our back door, and I'd rather not. So I'm willing to take the longer route at this point. We got another Horatio, which is good. Get that food building. And we're getting close to wanting to start transitioning to military. We've got just about the foundation of our empire started. If we can get rid of these pirates, grab this as an ally, and get this colonized, this is looking pretty promising as a good start. It will really depend on how quickly we can deal with the pirates, though. I'm almost kind of wishing that we had made our second hacking operation to sabotage their supplies, which would make them a little easier to take down. But we'll deal with it one way or another. Alright, the Zivali population, we can run the booster. It costs a little bit more now, but we still have plenty of income. Yeah, marketplace is going to become pretty important to us because we do have a lot of luxuries that we could sell. And we also have pretty good income of at least one luxury. I think I'm going to go ahead and pop that booster again. Just out of curiosity, we have... how many Horatio? We're at 5. Okay. We needed to get to 12, I think, for that quest. Alright, the first pirate ships are here. Pulsos have moved to a new a new relation with us. Colonial exchange will get done, which will help put us back to positive. And we have some other buildings that can do that. Until we get people on this system, this building isn't as valuable. But once we start putting population over here, it becomes pretty good. At the moment, we got enough stacked up in the queue that I don't really need to worry about putting anything else down. But what I'm thinking is probably going to be next is planetary landscaping is going to give us that good food building we want to grab. And then probably get another revealer and beautifier. We're going to need another scout, and we're going to need some more colonization to happen. Yeah, I think we're going to skip jumping to a new constellation and even bypassing pirates, and we're just going to build some military and just get over here and crush this before it gets out of hand. So that being said, we're going to need to probably move into the military tree, but let's look over here. We were considering maybe grabbing marketplace. The other technology that's really, really helpful for us, and that I think we probably should rush instead of, if we can just hold on economically dust-wise with the buildings that we have, rushing this one will basically solve a lot of our problems. And the reason that this one is so good is the same reason it's so good for the Umbral Choir. You start in a system with 4 planets that you can colonize right from the beginning of the game. In a very short number of turns, we're going to have all 4 of our home system planets colonized. And then that means that as soon as this building gets constructed, it's going to give us 80 extra industry. The choir actually have 5, so they get 100, so it's even better for them. But this is the strategy where I first came up with rushing to this tech, and I think it's time to consider it again. Holy moly, look at that. 26 turns. Our science is really hurting. We're not going to be able to do that. Like, we can do it, but it's going to have to wait until our science gets taken care of. We do have some ways to take care of that, and that is why I went down here and grabbed public-private partnerships. The problem is we just haven't constructed this building anywhere yet. We need to get this building constructed in more places. That being said, if we are going to go hard at the pirates, maybe it's time to jump up to efficient shielding. I think it's going to be like 26 turns on it as well, isn't it? No, it's only 8. So that makes some more sense. Yeah, because it's only a tier 2, not a tier 3. So let's go ahead and grab efficient shielding. That'll help us set up dealing with the pirates. We're also going to need to get ubiquitous surveillance and tanks, but that can happen next. Alright, that's going to help because I think... Did we get it? Yeah. So we are now the owner of this constellation. As long as we have more colonized systems in this constellation than any other player, we will continue to gain this bonus. And Artemis, get those 2 core buildings done. We need 25 Jadonics. We're making 5 a turn, so in 2 turns we should be able to pop that booster on this system, which will be really good for us. Until then, let's just get those done, and then let's get that done, and then let's consider colonizing these, and we'll go from there. Yep, we gain control of the constellations, so that's good. And this would be a good place. So we're about 10 turns from where we hit the Jadonics booster on our main system. Let's see where we're at now. And you can see we're at over 200 industry now. So we're almost double where we were like 10 turns ago. And that's the pace you want to be at typically for a good snowball. About every 10 to 15 turns you want to double primarily your industry for the early part of the game. Until you get to about turn 30 to 50, at which point your industry starts to slow down, but everything else starts to catch up. And so what we're really going to start doing over the next 5 to 10 turns is transitioning snowballing industry and food to a lesser degree into snowballing science so that we can actually keep up with the technologies we need to get the stuff done we need to do. In this case, military action. But I feel pretty good about our start. The fact that we're still the lowest score in the game at the moment has me a little concerned. I guess we're the second lowest by 1 point. But we should be able to correct that relatively quickly. I'm hoping by turn 30 to have this, at least have the quest figured out, and hopefully one that we can do. Hey Anne, welcome back. It looks like the pirates are trying to hack us. We could go ahead and shut down their hack. That's not a big deal. Doing a little Horatio gameplay today. Horatio's one of the few factions that I've spent a fair amount of time developing strategies for, and so we're just exploring those again today and making sure nothing too significant has changed about them from when I last played them. That seems to be the case. They seem to play pretty much the same way they did when I made my Horatio series on my channel. By the way, have you guys, have either of you been to my YouTube channel at TheNosePlays? Okay. Yeah, so in the early game, since you weren't here, just to quickly recap, we took the law that gives us extra approval but lowers our industry a little bit, and that gave us a little bit more dust, food, influence, and science. And then we used that to kind of accelerate into a Jadonics booster, which we've put down in several of our systems already. And it's giving us a bunch of industry already, plus 60 from system development upgrade, so doing pretty good. Yeah, my YouTube channel, I've had my YouTube channel now for about 2 years, I think. And it started off as just, I was watching a couple of Let's Players pretty regularly, and I was like, I wonder if I could do that. And I got the tools to do it, essentially. My hardware and software got updated, and I was able to actually try. And at first, it was just for fun, and then it kind of grew into something a little more, and now I'm doing it a lot more regularly. I hit 200 subscribers, and that's where the Twitch channel came from. I decided to give live streaming a shot, and I've been enjoying it so far, and I think I'm going to continue to do more of it. But yeah. Alright, so now we've got the food building I was talking about. And the reason I really like this building is A, it's super cheap to build, and B, because we have all of these systems colonized and all of them are either hot or cold, this building by itself for 2 turns of industry is going to give us 10, 20, 30, 40 food. Boom. Pretty darn good. So I think it's totally worth doing. Is it worth doing ahead of the science? That I don't know. I mean, I think we're really trying to snowball food more than anything. So they're not going to be that many turns apart. Alright, we got 4 curiosities, 4 probes and 3 curiosities. We're going to grab all of these. That's going to significantly increase our approval with these guys. Unfortunately, I don't have enough to get it one more tick. Otherwise I would, but we're trying desperately to make friends of these guys. Yeah, SB has kind of been my inspiration for getting into this. He's the one who got me the most interested in trying it myself, and I respect the man so much because what he does and how he does it so well is really hard. Like, if you go back and watch some of my really early stuff, I don't even think I put it up on the YouTube channel, but it's bad. Like, it's just not easy to talk to yourself for like an hour about what you're doing, and I've gotten a lot better at it over the last 2 years. But I love SB. He's a great guy. I've actually had the honor and the chance to talk to him directly a few times. And I love his community that he's built, and leaving comments in his comment section has been awesome because a lot of people give you feedback. So yeah. Oh, Well, I appreciate that. I imagine if you're depriving yourself of sleep that you probably don't live in the US. Or maybe you live on the East Coast. Yeah, that's kind of what I was guessing. Well, thanks for hanging out with me late into the morning. Hopefully you don't have to work tomorrow. Or if you do, not early in the morning. More blue cat mold. So now we're gaining 10 points a turn on this guy. That's going to fill this up rather quickly. We shouldn't have to pour any more resources. We'll be able to max this out really soon. We have the dust to buy the assist and see if... Okay. Yeah, if you don't have to work and you can get by without it for whatever reason, uh, that is a good thing. Enjoy it for as long as humanly possible because working is a means to an end, but it's rarely fun. We're going to buy out this as soon as we can and see if we can't get that quest done to assimilate these guys before anybody else. Until then, I've got a probe here, and I kind of want to launch it over here because we see the 2 lanes over here. We might be able to hit one or both of the ends of that lane. So we'll launch that one there. And it also inadvertently uncovered this node for us. So are either of you guys from, happen to be, you're from the UK. I'm a big, like, fan of Ireland and Irish whiskey and Guinness, and I have a little bit of Irish ancestry. Are either of you from Ireland? We did. I grabbed all of the anomalies here. There were 3 of them on this planet, and it uncovered these guys. So now our advancement per turn is quite significant, and it's going to increase rather rapidly. So. Alright, what else do we need to do this turn, if anything? We're at 7 of 12, it looks like. Yeah, I knew that the country of Ireland wasn't part of the UK specifically, but I didn't know if either one of you were maybe from there or lived close to it. Ooh, this is an interesting one. So we have a couple of things that we could pick here. The 10 approval actually pushes us over the line for ecstatic, I think, which makes sense to go ahead and take. That will also give us the time and maybe delay that luxury booster, approval booster building that we were looking at building. We don't have to build it quite as early as I wanted to. And that's going to last for 15 turns, which is pretty good. It's also going to increase the ecologist party's ideology, which helps that party grow, empower, and unlock new laws for us. This wouldn't be terrible. Double XP. But I'm actually considering bouncing our hero to another system here soon. So I think we're going to go and go with this one. The reason I would want to bounce our hero to another system is getting the hero over here increases the food output quite significantly of this system and helps it grow population more quickly than it normally would. We also have the ability to rush this now. So we did get through those first 2 turns. And then I just want to make sure we are going to construct this. So we'll probably wait 1 turn to move our hero if we move him. Honestly, though, yeah, I'm not worried about it. We're going to build a bunch of ships here pretty soon. Probably between 4 and 6 ships in the next 25 turns is going to happen. Alright, we now have access to the quest. Make it an easy one. Search the curiosity and cur. Where is that? Oh yeah, that's a really easy quest. Okay, cool. Well, thank you for that easy quest. Let's go take care of this problem for these guys. That's going to be really awesome because we're going to get this system. We're going to get a military fleet immediately. It's probably not going to be a very good one, but it's still something. And we can use part of that manpower to maybe come over here and mess with these guys. We're also going to get more Jadonics, which gives us the amount that we need to actually immediately put our Empire improvement down the turn we get this system. Beautiful. Everything is turning up aces for us. They've got 4 pirate ships. We should actually come over here and take a peek at what their ships look like and what we need to be able to deal with. It looks like crappy energy weapons and a mixture of energy weapons and possibly bullet weapons on that fleet. This fleet has the same crappy energy weapons and the same potentially mix of energy and bullet. They also have energy defenses on the better of the 2 ships. Okay. We can also take a peek here and see what their next fleet's going to look like. And these are both going to be better. So if we could get a hack out. I don't have another hack, and we tied our 1 hack up. And actually, we need to cancel this hack because we're no longer going to need to hack these guys. So yes, let's cancel the hack. Missiles are iffy. Missiles would be good if I was fairly confident they didn't have flak defenses, but they do have flak defenses. And so the only way to make missiles effective is to shoot a lot of them. Because they're going to shoot down a bunch of them with their flak defenses, even if they only have like 1 flak cannon. It's really effective defense against missiles. That being said, one thing we could do to avoid a small number of flak cannons is go with the swarm missiles. And they actually are much more effective if you can run something like a kinetic enhancer, which we happen to have because we picked up that titanium kinetic enhancer support module. So best case scenario, we run ships with a bunch of swarm missiles that also have that kinetic enhancer to increase their damage. And that way we can get past their defenses and their flak cannons. We're still a few turns away from transitioning to that though. We're going to get efficient shielding in 3, and then we're going to take a serious look at building some ships. We're also going to peek into the military part of the tech wheel and see about moving up there. But I did still really want to rush this technology for this building. I just don't think we're going to be able to before we need the ships. It's delaying our ships way too long at that point. Because we're going to need this, we're going to need that, and we're probably going to need this. Their defensive type was energy, so they're running shields. So using lasers or beams against them is going to be less effective than it normally would be. Plus, they're already using laser and beams. But this, while the damage per second isn't great, it actually is really decent at long range. And with a kinetic enhancer, it's even better. So what I might end up doing is going something like this to that. after we get the ships. We have our hacking operation now. And I have the potential to do that. That takes 7 turns, so they're running a defensive node, so we can't do that. But we could do from here to here to here in 9 turns. That's probably acceptable, and then we can maybe sabotage their fleet.
What you want?
How many turns till their fleet? Ah, 7. I was hoping that we could sabotage this fleet and lower its power, but it doesn't look like that's going to happen. Either way, I think hacking the pirates makes the most sense at this point. We don't really have anything else to hack. All right. Anything else that we need to do? I don't think so. All of our systems are building important structures or colonizing planets, which is also important. Yeah, I think so. And we can build dedicated siege modules to help siege them down so we don't need as much manpower in the invasion. We have a titanium, so we'll be fine. It's just going to take a little longer than I really would like. That should finish that quest and give us another system. 60 dust. We now have assimilated the pulsos into our empire. And we have that nice little deposit of Jadonics to help get their system off the ground. And so we can go ahead and queue that up right away. Beautiful. Get both of those done. And let's just take a little peek at what they've already built for us. So they've built the luxury dust building, the anomaly science building, approval building, and they actually built public-private partnerships and xeno-industrial infrastructure, which are both pretty decent. However, on their planet, it's actually a really crappy choice. There's got to be something wrong with the AI's algorithm, because a lot of times on a system like this, the better choice would be these 2 buildings, and then in situations where the other one would be better, they build these. So there's got to be something that it's not calculating properly. One thing that we could also do is potentially splice pulsos into our empire, now that we have enough of them. I don't really want to lose a bunch of population, but I think their effect for splicing is one of the better ones. Yeah, it actually is giving 2 industry per pop and a science, and so I think it's totally worth it to splice these guys as quickly as possible. So now every single one of our Horatio population will now produce extra industry and science. The industry is what's really important because we're going to have a lot of these guys. And then we have cool copies, which is just a great ability to get more food on our system, but the question is, yeah, it puts us at a deficit. Scoreboard position, we are kind of falling behind, but we're still ahead of the Purple Empire. And we're not really significantly enough behind Orange and Blue to say that they're ahead of us. There are 2 empires that are significantly ahead of us in the Red and Green. And that's probably because they're factions that have a better early game start. My guess would be one of them's probably the United Empire. The other one might be Cravers. Those seem to be 2 of the ones that the AI play better. And so you'll tend to be able to identify them by having their score jump out like that. But not always. Could also mean that they just got a really lucky start. Okay, Oh yeah, let's take a look at our fleet that we picked up. What did we end up with? 3 scrappers. That's not great, but they all have missiles, it looks like. Nope, this has a mix of energy and kinetic. And this has a mix of energy and kinetic. And this one has missiles, so not a great fleet. Not sure we want to send it over here just yet. Gonna have to think about this for a second because I want this fleet to engage around the same time that whatever we end up building comes in, as to maximize our damage and our ability for an invasion. This guy's got some things to do still. We needed to go this way anyways, right? Still a few curiosities down here. Yeah, I agree. This looks like a pretty reasonable start. This is one of the advantages or disadvantages to playing with many constellations. There's a lot of these. And so it does kind of isolate movement in the early game, where normally lanes would be bigger and easier to cross. And so as it is, each constellation kind of feels like an island. If you've ever played Endless Legend with the island map, it kind of feels like that. So it's a neat way to play, just a different way to play. It definitely slows down early aggression. But on the flip side of that, if you do end up on a constellation with another player, it's like hyper aggressive because there's so little territory that whoever can take it the fastest and pressure the other one off of it usually ends up pushing a player out of the game. And sometimes that'll be you. But it really depends on how many empires and the size of the galaxy you set. Since we set it to like a galaxy size for 8, I think there's very little chance of 2 factions ending up on the same constellation. Everybody's going to get their own, and then there's going to be a couple of them out here that have nothing but miners and pirates on them, and whoever can scoop those up the fastest is probably going to win the game. But we'll play a little bit longer. I'm not going to play too much longer. We're already 2 hours into this, which is about the length of time that I like to do a live stream. It makes a reasonably good video to put up on my YouTube channel, but it also is a good time to just take a break and reconsider the decisions you've made and see if maybe there's something new that you want to do. So we'll play a couple more turns and then we'll probably wrap this one up so you guys can get to bed over there in the UK. That was good. Warmongers, industrialists, I like that. These guys provide the bandwidth. We might have to start pouring more influence into these guys, which then makes me kind of want to take that law off so we can build some influence. Okay, what do we got? A 30 Hyperium reward isn't very interesting. Caffeine, I love caffeine. I've been making Irish coffee in the morning on my weekends. A little bit of Irish whiskey and my dark roast coffee is pretty tasty. The industry one is very possible. The dust reward is meh. And this one is just stockpiled dust, which is not very likely. Really curious as to why all of a sudden our dust is like severely negative. Since we're planning on building ships anyways, I think we're going to go with this one. Even though the reward is pretty meh, it will at least encourage me to stay on track with my current plans. So we'll take that. Objective achieved. Be the first to possess 20 star system improvements in your empire. We were the first to do this. That means that our industry is really good compared to anybody else's. And this just further solidifies the decisions we made in the early game. Because if you can outcompete everybody else with Horatio on industry, you know you're doing something right. Because Horatio tends to not have a strong advantage in terms of its industry in the early game. We got more red saying, which is really good for us because we can keep popping our Horatio population booster, which, wouldn't you know, just happens to be up. One of the things that I was mistaken on in one of my early impressions with the Horatio is that popping this booster would apply to all of the effects. It appears to only apply to your default effects of food and approval on hot, and not to the spliced effects. So that's unfortunate and would be a really nice way to offset the penalty for splicing. Yeah, that's what it was. The buildings and also the ships that aren't doing anything at the moment. Which then makes me kind of want to consider just throwing them at the pirates and seeing if we can't snipe a few. If we can get in a fight with 2 of the pirate ships, we'd probably beat them, just because we outnumber them. I'm going to at least move closer, and then that'll give us the option, or maybe we just have a random pirate patrol over here that we can take down. We kind of want to pick our fight carefully if we want to use those ships for anything useful. Horatio is growing quite nicely. We're at 9 of 12, so we're about ready to hit that +2 food on all of our empire forever. Our hack operation is in route. And anything else? So this law, how much is this law providing us? Can I find a spot where we get to easily see how much food we're getting from that law? It's not showing up here. Is farming logistics? No. Yeah, it's just +2 per population, right? I don't think it's worth running that law, especially since we have another neutral that we can maybe take advantage of. So I'm going to abolish this law. Let's look at these laws real quick. We could run the Tax Act to get our dust under control, but I have other plans for that. We're just like 1% away from being up a tier. That's probably another thing that caused our cash to crash. We were at ecstatic and devoted, and now we're down to loyal. So we lost like 15% dust income. One turn away from efficient shielding. I think you're right. I think we need to grab the marketplace. That's going to allow us to sell off things and keep, whenever this situation gets really dire, we can just sell a bunch of these strategics or luxuries that we're bringing in. Oh yeah, I wanted to do this. And then just pour what we have into there. That will get us a foothold on this other constellation, which will be good. This will be our future expansion, more than likely. That's a problem down the road that we'll deal with. Sustainable farms, and both of these would be really good here. We have no strategic, so this building's pretty bad. But everything else about this system's not bad, and we're already at a place where we're in a very good position to start building defensive and offensive ships. So let's get these things done in the next 6 or 7 turns, and then consider switching over to shipbuilding here. Toys for boys, yeah. We could run Toys for Boys. I didn't even think about that. But that's just because I don't really want to take this minus 10% hit. Out of curiosity, we can pass it and then abolish it right away if we have to. But how does that affect our dust? Yeah, it didn't really affect our dust that much. Industry-wise, we're doing pretty good in all of our systems, mainly because of the 60. Maybe we do just go ahead and run this. That definitely pushes us back to devoted on all of our systems. The only one that's even close to not being devoted is Artemis. Yeah, let's go ahead and run it. Good call. Alright, what we're going to do then is I'll finish up this turn, and then we're going to take a few minutes to look at ships and ship design and talk about what the best options are going to be for that. And then we'll go ahead and wrap this one up. So, is there anything else that needs to be done? Yes, we got a bunch of curiosities for here. Alright, some more influence and another battle tactic. And I still have 2 probes to launch out, so let's go ahead and get like that, maybe. Alright. We're in a pretty good spot overall. Just to recap where our systems are at. Our main system is doing really well. We got a lot of food coming in here. We really want to get another outpost going so we can take advantage of all this food. But a nice little stockpile of good luxuries and strategics. And we're ready to transition to military. So let's talk about the Horatio ships and why they're absolutely garbage. And to do that, I actually need to come over here and show you... where is it at? Price of perfection. All of our ships cost an extra 20% industry. So the more expensive we make our ships, they just cost way more than anybody else's. And that's unfortunate. Now, the fact that we're getting 15% extra industry on our systems from our constellation bonus greatly helps to offset this to some extent, and also gets our system improvements down, as I mentioned before. We also get plus 10% damage on ships. That's actually pretty decent. If I'm reading that correctly, it increases the damage of all of our weapons. I don't think it's damage to the ship. I sure hope not. If it is, then that really sucks. But I'm pretty sure we get a damage buff, and we should be able to see that when we come over here. Let's take a look at the weapon. So, weapon class. So, one of the best things about the Horatio ships, one of the strengths of the Horatio ships, is that a lot of their slots have a lot of different options. So like this slot can be defensive, offensive, or support. And a lot of other factions don't have the flexibility that Horatio ships have. That being said, the extra cost is really prohibitive. They just cost more than anybody else. And so unless you do have a really good industry base to produce ships, you're going to fall behind in a war of attrition. You're just going to lose the war of attrition. But we do have a really good industry base, and we had some luck with the Jadonics being nearby, and also with the Constellation bonus. So I think we're going to be okay military-wise. Pirates are not really that big of a threat to you anyways. You can almost always handle pirates. It's other players that are really going to be the problem. So what we want for sure, we need one engine. We'll throw that engine there. Weapon-wise, we do have a couple of options. We could throw down something like that. And having 3 sets of missiles on a single ship probably does overwhelm their flak defenses enough to just straight up beat them in a fight, unless they start producing like serious flak defenses. They also don't have any hull plating, so those ships will go down pretty quickly if they start to take missile damage. That could be the way to go, at least right now, where we don't have any other military tech. I believe this also satisfies one of our quests. We needed higher than 100 offensive power, I think. So building a couple of these will get that quest completed. And then defensive-wise, our ship similarly has a little bit of flexibility with these 2 slots. So we can do a lot of things with this type of ship as well. What I think I would like to do with it is they're using a lot of energy weapons. So maybe we put like a bunch of shields on this ship. Maybe put a weapon. What kind of weapon would we put on here? We'll put 1 engine on. And if we want a long-range weapon, we don't really want to use energy weapons. We haven't seen them with any missiles yet. So maybe we just throw a missile on here too and just really overwhelm them with missiles. The other option is we just put another shield on there. I think we'll put a missile on it. And then what we're going to do is look at maybe queuing up a single tool and 3 of our weapons. That will be a full fleet. This ship will kind of play defense for these ships, and most of the fire will be directed at him. But because he has good defenses for the enemy that's attacking us, he'll probably soak up most of that damage and survive, as long as I calculated properly that our missiles will overwhelm their flak defenses. And that's the plan. We also have these 3 ships, so I have a plan for that. Actually, I think there is a way to do something like that, but it requires the taxi trick. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I'll just briefly explain it. There are a couple of technologies. I think this is one of them. The Fleet Accelerator, where you put a whole bunch of these on a couple of ships called taxi ships, and it gives your entire fleet a big boost to its movement, and then you just take engines off of all your other ships. And so you can use a couple of these taxis to just kind of ferry your ships around, and you can build ships that are very, very specialized for, say, sieging or particular type of offense. Get them to the front lines quickly with the taxis, and then move the taxis back and pick up the next load of ships. And so we might try something like that in the future, especially once we start trying to move off of our constellation. The taxi ships become incredibly valuable compared to other ones. But in order to really pull it off, you do need to have higher command points. And so command points of 4 just isn't going to cut it. We're going to need to get the command point boost that we get from the tank tech up here, and then also this one. And then we can put like 3 of these taxis in every fleet, and they'll give something like 9 to 12 movement. And there's those modules, accelerator modules, that give even more than 1 point per module that are even better if you happen to find those. So that's probably what we'll consider doing, but we're going to go ahead and end this one today. I think I'll probably pick this one up tomorrow. So keep an eye out if you are following me and you want to come along for the ride, and we'll do another 30 or so turns like we did with the last game. And keep playing Horatio, because I'm having fun with him. And this is a good start, and one I want to see developed a little bit further. Yeah, Horatio ships are just tough to deal with. They're just not great ships. They don't have as much flexibility as, say, the Vultures, early scout ships get. Um, but they do have flexibility. You can make a lot of really cool kinds of ships with them, and we will be doing that. Have a good night, Anne. Glad to see you again. We will see you hopefully in the future. And I think with that, I'm going to go ahead and shut it down. So thanks for joining me, and we'll see you next time. You guys have a great night.